So I know a minister, is actually a good friend of our family's, who was married, had 2 children, and he went to a prostitute, and his life was over. It just was destroyed. It blew up. His wife divorced him. His children are so mad at him that they say they will never speak to him again. Of course, his ordination was revoked and was no longer able to be a minister. Everything fell apart. We know in the Bible, nothing good comes from the prostitute. It's not just morally wrong. Prostitute is it's like a proverb. It's like the opposite of Lady Wisdom. You know, if you follow the advice of Lady Wisdom, and that leads you to life. If you follow the prostitute, it leads you to death. And not only that, but we see in the scriptures that, when Israel turns away from God and goes the other way, God himself refers to Israel as a prostitute, going after other lovers. So here's the question. Why in the world did the spies go to the house of a prostitute? Now, somebody might say, well, I know why. They went there to have a good time. No, certainly that's what our culture would say. But I want to say to you, I really don't think that's true. If you think about it, these 2 men are hand-selected by Joshua. Now, if you remember Joshua's history, he was a spy. He was one of the 12 that was chosen by Moses. And he knows what a disaster that turned out to be, right? There was 12, and 10 of them gave a faithless report, and it ended up with 40 years in the wilderness till all that generation was dead. Do you think Joshua, who was Moses' successor, was careless when he selected the spies? I would say it's a safe bet that he picked them very carefully, and we know that Joshua is a man of God. Joshua is the kind of person who knows to take off his sandals when he's in the presence of the living God. He's somebody who knows about the holiness of God, and he is not going to make that mistake of choosing 2 playboys to go out and do a life or death kind of mission. He's going to choose people who know what this is all about. I'm sure he even had a speech with them. Not only that, but the Bible's not squeamish about telling us if the person slept with a prostitute or not. The Bible is not into the habit of kind of hiding that, even with important people. I mean, you think of like Judah, the son of Jacob himself, who went to a prostitute and turned out to be his daughter-in-law. It's all right there in the Bible. The Bible's not going to try to clean them up for you. If they're guilty, then okay, so my battery's low. That's what that was. Bible's not going to try to clean that up for you. I think if that was the reason they went to the prostitute's house, we would know about it. So why did they go there? And here's what I want to say to you. Let me give you 3 good reasons why they went there. First of all, this is a good way to slip into the city inconspicuously. Remember when the wise men came to Jerusalem with a big caravan and, the whole city was in a turmoil? The spies don't want that. They want to go where the poor people go, And, this is the section of town where things don't make the evening news, right? So they can slip in. Nobody knows. Nobody sees. Nobody cares. It's the poor part of town. Not only that, But there's some strategy involved here. They certainly scoped it out, and they can see that this is a good spot to go because this is, well, a lot of scholars believe, based on other ancient writings, that Rahab actually had an inn. This was a place where visitors could go, and it was actually built right into the wall. So, and it featured a window to the outside of the city, which is good, strategically speaking, if you need to make a speedy getaway. And in fact, that's exactly how it turned out, that window came in handy for them. So there's like some strategy involved in going there. And not only that, but if you think about it, Rahab is somebody who, because of her profession, comes into contact with a wide range of people. And it's an excellent source of information. We could almost say that Joshua's spies went to like a hub of information. This is a place where there's a lot of stories being talked about. Their ear is close to the things that are happening on the street. Rahab knows them, and they can talk to her and find out. But here's the main thing I want to tell you today. As we have just been talking about today, many times when you are about the business, especially as you have seen God guiding you, and that's an important ingredient, when you have a sense that this is a mission that God has called me to, this is something I feel like He has told me to do, I'm doing the best I can, I don't know all the answers, but I'm going to do my best. God Himself often leads you to the right place. You know, they're giving it their best shot. I think this will be a good place for us to go. We might be able to learn some information. But I believe this is like a Kairos moment, that God Himself is guiding them to this place. And we can say that for many reasons. It certainly worked out that way. So the first point that I want to make is that God doesn't show you the whole picture at one time, but He often will ask you to think, kind of like Chia was doing on the couch that day. God, what are you saying to me? What is the direction I should go? We don't know it all, but we take steps in the direction that we think is the best. And I think that's just important to realize. It doesn't mean you know it all. It doesn't mean that you're the mind of God, but you do have this freedom to set off in the direction that you think is the best, the thing that you think is right, and then you can expect guidance from God. What an important thing that is, to know that our God is a living God, and He wants to lead you. He wants to guide you in the way that you should go. So this morning, as we look at this verse from Hebrews 11:31, I'm just going to read it to you again, but we're going to take a look at the prostitute Rahab as an example of faith today. All right? So this is what it says. By faith, the prostitute Rahab, because she welcomed the spies, was not killed with those who were disobedient. All right, so the author of Hebrews is lifting her up as an example of faith. Somebody who's an inspiration to us, somebody that we are to emulate. So I want to mention three things that we notice about Rahab, which should be put into practice if we're really going to do that. And the first thing is that one of the dominant things that we notice about Rahab is that she is a person who heard and obeyed. I forget what my second letter was there. Was it obeyed or acted? A or O? B? Really? She heard and she, that might just be a mistake. Oh, no, she heard and she believed. She heard and she believed. Oh, you saved the day, Kathy. Thank you. Okay. That's my second point. when you read this little speech that Rahab gives to the spies, it's a very interesting speech because it has kind of a concentric format to it. It's well thought out. And what that means is that the first line that she says is the same as the last line. And the second line corresponds to the second to the last line. And the third line of her speech is mirrored by the third to the last line, and so on and so forth until you get to the center of it. And the two things that are being highlighted by this speech in the center are the two things that she heard about, the two great acts of God that are the redemptive works of God for Israel. Number one, he dried up the Red Sea, and number two, he crushed the kings just on the east side of the Jordan River, not too far from where Jericho is. That's the focus of her speech. These two things that she has heard that God has done, and she believes it. Now, folks, here's what I want to point out to you. She wasn't there. Now, the Israelites were there. They saw it with their own eyes. They saw the sea get parted, and they saw the people pass through as on dry land. They saw the way those cities fell on the east side of the Jordan. They were there. They saw how God has been with them from the beginning. The Red Sea's the beginning, all the way to Sihon and Og, and that's the end when those victories were won. The Israelites saw that. Rahab just heard about it, and guess what? She believed it. She heard it, and she believed. That should remind you of something. Remember when Jesus rose from the dead and he appeared to Thomas after a week of Thomas saying, I will never believe unless I see it with my own eyes. And what did Jesus have to say to Thomas? Well, good. You now have seen and so you believe. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed. In other words, they heard it. And let me just kind of get practical for a minute. What does this mean? This means you want to be as familiar as you can with the Bible. Now, if you have a brain like mine, you forget stuff all the time, you know. That's why it's really important to read the Bible. It's not fresh in your mind. You forget things. You should never say, well, I already read that. The question is, are you familiar with it? Is it in your mind? Is it working today? Not did you read it 10 years ago? Is it fresh? Is it inspiring you now? Is it informing you now? Is it teaching you now? We want to read the Bible, even, you know, just little bits at a time, just a couple things, but just keep it, like have a steady diet of it, because that's you hearing and believing. The more you hear it, the more you believe it. This is how it works. I mean, that's how it talks about in Romans. You know, how are they going to believe if they don't hear? You got to hear, and then you're going to believe. The other day I heard somebody thank the universe because some events had happened in a surprisingly favorable way for them. And they said, I just want to thank the universe. I said, well, I believe God did that. And they said, oh, I know, but I hate to say that because, you know, some people have bad things happen in their lives, and I don't want them to think that God did that or something like that. That's what they said to me. And I said, but listen, don't let that poison your thinking, because that's bad thinking. I mean, thanking the universe is nonsense. The universe is not a somebody to thank. That's just foolish thinking. That's futile thinking. The scripture tells us that all good and perfect gifts come down to us from heaven, from the Father of lights. And even if bad things happen to us, well, then we know that Job is our example. You know, God gives and the Lord gives and the Lord takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. That's how Job scolds his wife. He's like, what, are we only to give God thanks when everything goes our way? Don't let it poison your thinking. And your thinking is going to be good thinking, and your faith is going to be strong faith when you're reading the word, hearing it, and believing it. Our culture acts like that's foolishness. But as you could hear, as we went around the circle today, it's not foolish at all. God is working. And we want to be people who are acting out of faith, believing that he's at work in the things that are happening in our lives, so that we're attentive and we're ready to act on those things. And that kind of leads me to the second one, which is that Rahab believed, and so she acted. Rahab acted on her faith. We could say that once she grasped that these things that she had heard about were true, that God, that is Yahweh, she actually uses the word Yahweh. She uses God's personal name, the covenant name of God. That God is truly God in heaven above and on earth below. That's kind of a reference. That's almost like an allusion to Deuteronomy. Once she understands that this is God who brought Israel out of Egypt, did a miracle through the sea, crushed the kingdoms east of the Jordan, that is to say, brought judgment upon those people whose sin had reached the full limit. She began to put two and two together. What's the next city in the dots? If you connect the dots, what's the next city? Well, that would be Jericho. So she's hearing, she's listening, she's understanding, and as she grasps it, it's starting to inform her decisions. She understands that the judgment of God is coming upon Jericho for their sins. And what's she going to say? Well, thank goodness I'm not a sinner. Folks, she's not going to say that. What's she going to do? Say, hopefully judgment won't come? Well, just look at the two cities on the other side of the Jordan. She's ready to take action. She's ready to obey God right now. And some people might say, well, boy, that was hard work. The decisions that she made, those were hard decisions to make. Those were hard actions to take. I mean, she had to disobey her king. She had to forsake her country. She had to become a traitor. Do you know what the crime is when you betray your country? We call that treason. It's very serious, isn't it? Everybody knows that. And yet, she has heard something that is so radical to her that she's willing to make those kind of decisions. So she hides the spies. She says, I'm going to throw my lot in with them. Now, when she talks to the spies, she says something like, will you show kindness to me because I showed kindness to you? When she uses the word kindness, she's using the same word, the same extremely important word, maybe you know it, it's the Hebrew word hesed, that God himself uses to refer to himself. It's what describes his covenant relationship with his people. So she's appealing to something that she knows is at the heart of these spies. Will you show kindness to me because of the kindness that I have shown to you? And so this is the point that I want to make. Rahab seizes the moment. She seizes the moment. She says, please swear to me by the Lord that you will show kindness to my family because I have shown kindness to you. And this is what I was talking about in the beginning. God directed the spies to her very house. Let me just tell you this. this is not the first time that she has thought about the danger that is approaching. You know, we all live in the world. We all watch the news. We know the things that make us nervous. If you've been around a while, you can see changes in the culture that make you uneasy because you know that's not right. We're going in a wrong direction. And if you've been around a while, that makes you nervous. My mother truly prays for the generation of her grandchildren because of that very reason. She's been around a while. She says, whether it's national debt or whether it's the environment or whether it's politics or truthfulness or morality, if you've been around a while, you start to say, I see what's going on. And Rahab, of course, has her ear to the ground. She knows it's not the first time she's thought about the danger coming. It's not the first time that she has thought about who in the world is this God that can take on Egypt, just squash them and bring his people out like that. Who is that God? She's given that some thought. And lastly, folks, this is not the first time that she has given some serious thought to her own life, the direction of her own life. Where is my life going? Is this the life I want? Am I on the right path? Just like each one of us have been there. Rahab's been there. Rahab's been thinking about these things. And suddenly, look at this. 2 men of God come under her roof. Now, I don't know if anything like this has ever happened to you, but folks, when you've been living in depravity, and suddenly somebody who is truly a holy person, a man of God or a woman of God, comes into your house or into your presence and has a conversation with you, it is a strange feeling. It's like light shining in darkness. You know some kind of encounter just happened here. It changes you, kind of like what Jody was saying about her testimony when she was in the salon. It was enough for her to leave that salon really thinking, what is this Jesus that I just heard about? Folks, I want to say to you, as she talked with those spies, she recognized an opportunity and she took it. She said, I'm going to go for it. Apparently, if you just kind of read this account, she was already thinking, because she already hid the spies. She already said, you guys get under here. And put the stalks of flax over top of them. And then she goes and talks to the king. Oh, yeah, they came. I had no idea who they were. She's lying. I had no idea who they were. They left. They left just as the gate was closed. And I think, they went that way. Hurry, you should see if you can catch them. She's already made up her mind what she's going to do. Then she goes up to them and says, listen, you guys, I'm throwing my lot in with you. I need you to promise me that you will spare my life. When this judgment comes, that you will take care of me and my family. Actually, if you notice, she doesn't even mention herself. Will you spare my family? And so, the spies agree to reciprocate her kindness. And I want you to just think for a second, what did that feel like at that moment? Folks, that's what every single believer feels like. The joy that entered her heart when she knew, I am not going to be swept away with the unrighteous. Not because I'm a model citizen, not because I've lived a righteous life, but sheerly because of the grace that has come to me because I humbled myself and received it. That's what you have. If you're a believer in Jesus Christ, that's what you have. There is an immeasurable joy in your soul because you saw the danger that's approaching and you took a hold of the lifeline whose name is Jesus. Jesus is the one who says to you, my life for yours. meaning he lays down his life so that your life can be saved. And lastly, I will mention this. Rahab is such a powerful example of faith to us because though she's a pagan, an unbeliever in God, though she is a prostitute, nevertheless, she welcomed the message of God, and not only was she saved from perishing and from the judgment of God, but listen to me, she took her place in the kingdom of God. She took her place in the kingdom of God. Do you know that there's some line later on in Joshua that says, and Rahab is still in with the Israelites to this day? Well, do you know she married an Israelite man named Salmon? And those two parents, mother and father team, raised one of the godliest men who ever walked the planet. His name was Boaz. If you ever read the book of Ruth, it's that Boaz. That's their little boy, baby Boaz. That is theirs. And he reflects, of course, the faith of his parents, the faith of Rahab, and the faith of Salmon. Oh yeah, that boy was raised in the faith, because we're talking about the conversion of a prostitute, a woman who said, that was not the way. I am following now the way of God. And they raised a boy like Boaz. Well, Boaz, when he grew up, he married a lovely young lady named Ruth. Maybe you've heard of her. Another incredible woman who was willing to leave her country for the sake of God, and became a great daughter-in-law to her mother-in-law, Naomi. Well, she married Boaz. And those two had a baby and raised that baby, certainly with the same kind of faith. His name was Jesse. And Jesse was the father of David. And David is the greatest king that Israel ever had. God raised up the greatest king that Israel ever had. That's the grandson. David's the grandson, great-grandson of Rahab, the prostitute. And folks, that's not all. As you know, when you get to Matthew and read chapter 1 of Matthew, right there in the family line, in the genealogy, guess who is the grandmother of the Messiah? Rahab, the prostitute. I mean, it gives you shivers to think about this. But that's Kairos moment. That is God working. And this is exactly what he does in the life of every single believer. He takes you. He guides you. You do the best that you can. But I'm telling you what, when you cooperate with God in the Kairos moments that he brings, there is no limit to what our God can do. You know, sometimes we just are so disappointed in ourselves. I would have expected more by now out of me. Folks, never say that. You are a child of the living God, and he's using you now. Continue to walk with him, talk with him, cooperate with the Holy Spirit, and I promise you, he's going to accomplish the fullness of the purpose that he has for your life. It's guaranteed.